This video is about the method that I use for sealing ponds. This pond's about just over a year old. It's still a fairly immature system yet, but its main purpose is to take massive rain events that we got a whole series of earthworks that feed into this pond. So when we have major rain events, rather than that water running away, this holds on to it by filling up and then slow releases it to the landscape. So the pond itself is designed to seep. But we had a pretty substantial rain event a couple of days ago, so the pond's a little higher than it normally is at this time of year. So it's the perfect time for this. But yeah, we're seeing more and more dry conditions, more and more drought. So if I could have this pond hold on to water a little bit longer, especially when it's full, it tends to drop the first foot relatively quickly because of course you've got the increased hydraulic pressure of the weight of the water itself forcing down on all the water below it. But also up the top, it's not full very often, so there's not a huge amount of biofilm build-up and so on that tends to seal ponds in a little bit more anyway. It will seal slowly over time, just left to its own devices, but I'm going to give it a bit of a hurry up. Now, the classic technique for sealing ponds, and if you express an opinion on anywhere on the internet about a natural pond and the fact you want to seal it in a bit better, everyone will tell you put ducks on it, which sounds great. It's a bit of work, but let me show you. Behind me, there's the house there. This is a long way to walk up to let the ducks out each morning. We've got substantial predators here. We got pine marten and so on. We can't just leave them out. And of course quite a few of them can swim as well, so even I've got a pond with a small island on it, but still if I stuck a duck house on that island, which all the books will tell you is great, well, pine martens can swim. It's not going to save a great deal. So yeah, it's not really an option to put ducks up here. And also it's a fairly substantial earthwork, even to put like temporary electric fencing around it. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of fencing, and it's just not something I've got lying around in huge volume. So we're using a similar technique, but done slightly differently. I'll show you. So what I've got here is a bucket of duck manure. I cleaned the duck pot this morning. So this is fresh, wet manure. It's not something that's been sitting around for ages and has dried. So it'll dissolve fairly easily. And then I'm going to cover, about a third of it, I'm going to cover that with water. Right, that's that done. Now, I didn't film that because, yeah, filling a bucket of manure with water while filming with one hand isn't really something that's going to, well, there's a lot of potential for that to go wrong. I'm just going to smash that up in the water to get as much as I can dissolved and in suspension in the water itself, but that's going really quickly, you can tell. That's pretty good. Right, I'm going to switch to my smasher upper stick. It's just a bit of scrap that I've had knocking around for so long that it just tends to get used for this sort of job. So I can tell I'm smashing the lumps much more easily than I can with the spade. That's pretty good. So I don't have to worry about getting all of it, because we're going to be using the same bucket all the way down the line. And then I'm going to get my watering can. See if I can do this one-handed. And then I'm going to try and pour that, right, carefully into the watering can. I see the odd lump going in. You can see it's mostly liquid. Let's settle a bit. So that's now full. Now the reason I'm not just going to dump straight from the bucket into the pond is, first off, I don't want any of the lumps going in. I just want the liquid. But also, with putting it in the watering can, I can have a longer, more controlled stream. So I'm going to walk around the perimeter of the berm with my arm at reach. I'm just going to do a steady stream all the way around into the actual water itself. And the way that's going to work then is duck manure's got particularly fine particles. There's a lot of manures are good for this, and there's various techniques for using animals to seal ponds, but ducks are the best ones for doing it this particular way, where you haven't got the ducks on the pond themselves. So what's going to happen is that with the manure in solution in the water, the water that seeps into the berm and away will drag, because of the pressure of the water and the weight of it above the berm, will force those particles against the berm, and it'll, because they're such fine particles, they'll actually fit between the tiny particles of soil, double topsoil and subsoil, and it'll fill in the spaces in between, and it'll start to provide a better waterproof seal right across the entire face. Now, I'm not going to just do this the once. I'm going to use everything that I've got here, and then I'm going to do it every month or so, as I end up cleaning the manure out of the duck house. And I wouldn't do this with the bedding, the duck bedding, because there's just so much carbon in it, and I don't really want that. So here we go. In fact, let's start over here. That's probably the easiest way. So, see, there's the edge of the pond, and I can do that all the way along the edge, and you can see how it dissipates out. So I'm going to worry too much about covering every bit, but it'll clear up fairly quickly. And the other thing is, it'll add a fair load of nutrient to the pond as well. And what that'll do is that'll tend to form surface algae biofilm. And the biofilm itself acts like a bit of a glue. And that'll tend to seal it in a little bit better itself. And then that will provide something for future manure particles to cling to, and it becomes a bit of a feedback loop. So slowly over time, as long as I keep doing this, I will be raising the surface of the pond just a little bit each time. There we go. So time to go get the next lot. So this is the second batch. Now, one thing I'm going to make clear, when I get over to, where are we? Oop, that section over there, there's actually a dragonfly over there. I think it's laying eggs, so I'm going to keep well clear of that. You can see how well this is dissipating and spreading through the water. So really it will be dragged where it's needed anyway. I'm not going to put any on the island, obviously, because I'm not worried about soil seeping there, because that's not the berm. Mostly this is the compacted berm. This is the place with the greatest capacity for water to leak out of the pond. So that's where I'm going to concentrate, and I'm pretty much going to start over there, kind of where the lily pads are. I'm going to start from there and bring it back a little bit at a time. And I'm not going to film it, but I'm going to keep repeating this now until I've gone through all of the manure, and then all the bits have been smashed up and they've been put into solution as well. Only the finer stuff that's settled out in the bottom of the bucket, I'm not going to put in, because it'll just sink. It'll just put too much nutrient into the pond with no benefit at all to it. So yeah, I'm going to finish putting all the manure in, and then I'll come back and film a bit more. So that is all that's left. It's just the solids that don't really want to dissolve. So as ducks forage and sift their way through mud, they swallow a certain amount of mud and grit and stuff, which is good for them, but it's not really something I want in the pond. But you can see behind me, it's not as clear as it was. You can see it's kind of dark and murky around the edge, and that's exactly what we want. Now, all of our ponds, I think we've got 5, 6 now, all of those ponds, all of those ponds are clay lined. None of them have got geosynthetic liner or a rubber liner or anything like that. They're all just compacted clay. They all seep a little bit because they're designed to. They hold on to water and slowly release it to the landscape. But the duck pond itself is phenomenal. It barely loses any water at all. And what water it does lose is entirely through evaporation. So it's a technique. If you've got a hole in the wall in your berm or a major leak, it's not necessarily going to work, you know. But for something like this that just slowly seeps, which again, it's meant to, it's phenomenal at just sealing it just enough and giving it that extra layer of protection, and really, you know, holding water a lot longer and seeping it more slowly. So it definitely works, because, as I say, our duck pond does not lose water at all, and it's been constructed in exactly the same way. It's just a question of doing it often enough and keeping going with it. And the other reason that I wouldn't put ducks into this pond is, first off, as I say, it's too far from the house, and that'd be really difficult to set up fencing and electro mesh and so on. But also, we got muscovy ducks, and they actually worry away at the edge. You know, they nip into the mud, so they do actually erode the bank slightly, which isn't a huge deal with a duck pond, because it's of such a scale that it's not an issue. But with something this size, you know, I don't want to have to go all around the edge and, you know, fill it all in and so on. So yeah, it's a technique that definitely works, and it'll be interesting watching this develop over the next 6 months to a year or so.